セリフでマスター英会話
Hey guys, it's HIDEKI. I've been super busy with a bunch of stuff, and it's been over 2 months already since my last video. From now on, I'll be sharing more tips and tricks for learning English in upcoming videos, so keep watching and have fun. Today, I'm going to talk about a specific habit I quit, which significantly improved my English speaking skills. Many Japanese people don't even realize that this one thing is actually hurting their English learning in many ways. Just by watching this video, your English communication skills will get a big boost. Alright, without further ado, let's dive straight into the main topic. So, what do you think is the one thing I quit that made my English speaking skills improve so much? The answer to this question could be quite astonishing for many Japanese learners of English. Especially for those who've been studying English for a long time but still can't speak well, or listen confidently, this will be really hard to believe. Do you ever find yourself worrying about messing up the grammar, or sounding bad when you speak English? Because of that, you might end up getting tongue-tied, or just not feeling confident when you speak or listen. However, if you find out what I stopped doing, those worries could just vanish like they never existed. By now, some of you might have already caught on. Yes, that one thing is being too nervous or overly anxious. A study from Newcastle University in the UK found that Japanese people are 16.3% more neurotic than the global average. Some foreigners are surprised or even puzzled by how overly nervous some Japanese people can be. In fact, many Japanese people tend to seek perfection when they speak English. They hold back from speaking because they're scared of messing up the grammar or pronunciation. Honestly, this is a big roadblock to getting good at English. As a matter of fact, I used to be just like that. When I first started learning English, I was extremely nervous about not making mistakes. If I messed up even once during a conversation, I'd get so embarrassed that I couldn't keep the conversation going smoothly. I'm sure many of you have been through something like this, haven't you? Why do Japanese people get so nervous and anxious about learning English? There are several reasons for this, but the biggest one could be the deficit-focused approach in Japanese schools. As you know, we live under a point deduction evaluation system from elementary school to university, and even after entering society. In exams, getting a perfect score with textbook answers is considered the only right thing, and making mistakes is deemed unacceptable. Teachers spend more time pointing out what students do wrong, instead of what they do right, always finding faults. When you go through this kind of education for so long, it's no wonder you end up being really scared of making mistakes. That's why, when speaking English, you get super anxious about saying something wrong, or being laughed at. The more nervous you get, the harder it is for you to speak English smoothly. People say Japanese folks are shy, but it's not shyness, it's just that we're scared of making mistakes. The same can be said for English listening comprehension. Most Japanese people feel they have to understand every single word when they listen to English. It's like a kind of obsession. But in everyday conversation, no native speaker tries to catch every single word. It's easy to understand when you think about how you listen to Japanese. No one listens in such a weirdly obsessive way. Oddly, even though we don't listen this way in Japanese, we try to be so exact when it comes to English. Quite a few of my students become very distressed when they can't pick up prepositions or articles. Not catching those words doesn't matter at all for understanding the general meaning. The best tip for listening comprehension is to focus on the words you did catch, rather than those you missed. This is just another downside of the deficit-focused approach in Japan's English education. We just can't stop worrying about the mistakes instead of what's right. Like if someone says something grammatically wrong, some people jump at the chance to point it out. They're the so-called English nerds, who pop up all over online forums and message boards. There was a time when these English nerds were involved in intense arguments about intricate grammar topics. They were going at it saying stuff like, "What the heck?" and "Shut up, you idiot." A native speaker came in and just said, "It doesn't matter," and that was the end of it. Even native speakers don't think that much about grammar when they talk. Still, those Japanese people who do not speak English well are more obsessed with perfect grammar. They freak out over even the smallest differences between what they've learned and how people actually talk. Take it easy. The Japanese language we use daily is actually full of grammatical inconsistencies. However, that's exactly how language works. It's totally fine to have that many mistakes. Despite that, some Japanese people get really uptight about English, and can't handle even tiny mistakes. And those English nerds often freeze up and can't say a word when they're actually in front of a foreigner. If you want to start speaking English fast, it's better to put the details aside for now. Say you're sculpting a person out of clay. What would you start with first? Normally, you'd shape the whole figure first, and then add the details like the fingers, eyes and nose, wouldn't you? Not many people jump straight into the tiny details right from the beginning, right? The same can be said for mastering English. If you keep stressing over small things like pronunciation and grammar mistakes from the start, you'll never be able to build the bigger picture. That's why you need to shape the basic English figure first. Do you see what I mean? This means that initially you shouldn't bother with the small details. Instead, concentrate on creating the basic structure. In other words, don't worry if it's broken English. Just start using it. I say basic structure here, but I'm not talking about the basics of English knowledge. I meant that you should use English boldly, regardless of bad pronunciation or messy grammar. I used to be like that too, but Japanese people tend to stress over the little things from the get-go. That's why people around the world say Japanese people are over-anxious. They think Japanese are way too nervous. We are always nervous and constantly worried that our English might be incorrect. However, if you're always worried about being embarrassed by mistakes, you'll never get to speak English properly. Rather, you should see making mistakes as a badge of honor for English learners. It's because the more mistakes you make, the more your English skills will improve. I once had a younger friend who had awful English pronunciation and struggled with grammar, but never worried about the small stuff. His English was so poor that he misheard no problem as no program and asked me what it meant. He was never afraid to talk to Americans and kept speaking to them in English, ignoring the minor mistakes. As a result, he soon made friends and started enjoying daily conversations in English. Watching him, I learned how important it is to speak without worrying about mistakes. Above all, the key to learning a new language is to not fear making mistakes. As previously mentioned, making mistakes is a fundamental part of learning and represents opportunities for growth. Even native speakers don't speak perfect English. It's the same with Japanese. If you worry too much about making mistakes, it slows down the conversation and makes it fall flat. Since we're Japanese, it's completely normal to make mistakes in English. Just speak with a "who cares" attitude. I also talk about how to speak English confidently without getting too nervous in a special private webinar. You can watch it right away by clicking the link in the video description, so go ahead and check it out. Alright, that's all for today. Next time, I'll talk about even more specific tips and tricks for speaking and listening, so stay tuned. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Okay, so see you in the next video. Bye bye.
適当にやってね、撃沈してしまう人がほとんど。なぜかというと、いきなり英会スクールに行っても、英会スクールっていうのは英語の話し方を教えてくれる場所ではないんですよね。で、それはプロセスが分かってる人は、だから先に英会スクールなんか行かないんですよ。オンライン英会なんかも始めないんです。先に英語を喋る方法を知ってから、行かないと損してしまうのが分かってるからね。なぜか、英会スクールというのは、すでに身についている英会力を試しに行く場所です。だからある程度喋れる人が、今日はこういうのちょっと試してみようかな、こういう表現をやってみようかなっていうのがあって、そういうスキルを磨きに行くような場所なわけですよね。だから、初心者が全く英語を喋れない人が英会教室にいきなり行ってお金をすごい、向こうはね、カモですからもう大喜びでね、どうぞどうぞ入ってくださいって言いますよね。だけどそこで英語の話し方っていうノウハウは教えてもらえないわけですよ。そこではただ単に英語を話す、ただひたすら英語を話す場を提供する施設ですからね。だからそこではノウハウ自体は教えてもらえないんだ。じゃあそのノウハウっていうのをこれからね、お話したいと思います。ここからはすごい重要ですからよく聞いてくださいね。まず、英語を話せるようになるための労働